Okay, File, New Client. New client name, me. Okay, so that'd be your company, and this would be a folder. So this would be like the company, and this would be the job number that you were using. Okay, so now I've created a new client, which is listed here. Job, new job. So I've created a new client. Now I'm creating a new job. So now I've created a new job. So this is where the new job shows up. There's where the new client shows up. But now there's no specifications in there. So I go Edit, Job Spec Setup. I'm going to import a spec. I create a spec, or I can import one from another job. I'm going to copy all those specs. I can change my direction of my north arrow. Fabrication drawings. I'm going to pick a letter size one. Weld map. A lot of places like numbers instead of letters, and then the item tags is your bill of material. Pipe itemized. Fitting summarized. If you could make the fitting itemized, if the client wants a separate heat number listed for each item. That's basically the size of the pipe. Say OK. Now here you can decide whether you want your dimensions to be inches or millimeters. Same with this other information. So I'm going to say OK. So now I'm ready to draw. I can go Fabrication Drawings. Now I use my number pad a lot. So you know your number pad has numbers 1 through 9 on it, the keypad. If you press number 4, it will go to the left because it's on the left side of your keypad. 6 will send you to the right side of your keypad. 8 up, 2 down. And if you want to move on a diagonal, your numbers would be 7 to go up left, 9 to go up right, 3 to go down right, and 1 to go down left. So we're just deciding where we're going to start drawing from. So I'm going to say there, once I've located that, I hit Enter. That's decided where I'm going to start my drawing. North, south, east, etc. So it's north, south, east, west, U for up and D for down. So I'm going to start by going down, so I just hit D on my keyboard. And now, because it's the first item I'm drawing, it wants to know which spec I'm going to use. I'm just going to say this one, carb. And now it needs to know what line size I'm starting with. I'm going to say 4-inch. Okay, what's the first item I'd like to draw? Well, I'm going to start by drawing a weld neck flange. And then there's different types of weld necks in here. This is all in the spec setup. So there's orifice taps, socket weld, orifice flange with socket weld taps. You can add a lot more choices in here easily. But I'm going to go with the basic weld neck. Now that I've drawn the weld neck, I can change the orientation by just by hitting the space bar on my keyboard. I could also increase the size if I were to hold Shift and press the up key. It would change the scale. We started with, I think, a default of size 3 when we did our spec setup, but you can change it here. So once you're satisfied with that, you can press Enter. So now it wants to know what you want to do next. Well, I could draw a 90 degree or a 45 degree elbow, but I'm going to draw some pipe. The first click is going to put my item identification bubble. So there. And then my next one will be the end of my pipe. So generally you probably want your item identification bubble to be about the middle of your pipe. Okay, so that's the end of my pipe, so it wants to know what I want to do next. I'm going to say a 90 degree elbow. So I can change the orientation by using spacebar. The first times that I press spacebar, it'll give me north, south, east, west. The second time, when I continue pressing it, it knows I wasn't satisfied with those choices. So it starts giving me more choices. It starts giving me 45 degree options. Okay, so I've decided that I really do want to go east. I press enter. Okay, now it knows it's time to put a dimension in. So it automatically is popping up with this dimension line. I like to put my dimension in line with the face of flange rather than over here. I like to continue. I think it looks better. So once I'm satisfied, I want it right about there. Then I left click on my mouse. Now up you'll see it says 9. That's the fitting length. So the flange and the elbow, if you were to add those two together with no pipe, that would equal 9 inches. But I'm going to say that I want a foot of pipe in there. So I'm going to go 1 foot 9. Now if I was to go 1-9, it would, you see that changes to say calculate, because it's going to subtract 9 inches from 1 foot. So we don't want to do that. We want to go 1, 9. And you could say 9 inches or not. It understands that it's going to be inches. So then I say accept. And you'll see that it's made at 1 foot 9, and the foot of pipe, you can see it's in brackets underneath the overall dimension. So that dimension in brackets is how long the pipe is. So if the fellow wants to build this, he simply has to cut a piece of pipe 12 inches, weld these items together, and you'll have an overall dimension of 1 foot 9. So I'm going to do some more pipe. Again, the first click I do is going to be the identification bubble for my bill of material. The next click will be where I want the end of the pipe. And now I'm going to say I want a 45 degree elbow. I could type in the letter F on my keyboard if I wanted. You can see they mentioned the shortcut in front of that. F, E for 90, or P for pipe. So I'm going to go click on this for a 45 degree elbow, and it knows I could go multiple directions with a 45 degree elbow. It's even now considering rolling offset if I wasn't happy with the first choices. But I'm not going to get too tricky right here. I'm going to simply go to the southeast. And when I'm happy with that, I press enter. Okay, so now I've done pipe, elbow, pipe, 45 degree elbow. Again, it's asking for the dimension. I move my mouse till I feel satisfied with the location. And then I do a left click with my mouse. And the fittings are 8.5 inches. I'm going to say I'm going 5 foot 8. I could say 1/2, or I could say 0.5. 5 foot 8.5. And again, you can see that the pipe required there between those fittings would be 5 foot in length. I'm going to draw some more pipe. Let's say I'm going to do a T now. So I click on T. Now here's different types that are in the specification. Straight T or reducing T. So I'm going to go with a reducing T. So it wants to know what the small branch is going to be. I'll say 2 inches. And again, I can space bar and it'll give me options for that. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to dimension the offset box in a little while, so I think I'll bring my dimension down a little bit lower. And I'll say 6 feet. You can see up there 6 5/8 is what the T and the 45-degree elbow add up to. So I'm just going to say 6 feet. And it's calculated to cut the pipe length to be 5 foot 5 3/8. We call that the cut length. Say I'm going to end this here with a cap, a butt weld cap. And I'm going to hit enter. So now that's the end of that. It wants to know, it realizes that I need to draw something on that reducing T. So I'm going to draw some pipe going up, weld neck flange. And again, I can space bar the orientation and enter when I'm happy. If I wanted to make that a little bit smaller because it's a reducing, went through a reducing T, I could. Most companies aren't too concerned about that. I hit enter. It wants to know my dimension. 4 foot 3 space 5/8. I'm just showing you there's multiple ways. I could also say 3 space 0.625. Okay. And most places wouldn't be too concerned about putting a blind flange on there because it's not a welded item. Speaking from a shop fabrication point of view. So now I can go, none of this has been saved so far. So I probably normally would like to save before I did all that work. So now I'm going to go File, Save As, Control Number J1. 123-J1. Reference drawing. Post-weld heat treat is normally, you'd see that on heavier lines. Thicker wall pipe. Extra drawing information, paint. It's a happy refinery, so we're going to make that pink. We could put insulation on there if we wanted. See all this information now is filled in down here. These weld procedures were all set up in the spec, so this is all comes in automatically. The information that I added just now was this and this. You can see it calculates the diameter inches of weld. So for a 4-inch weld, that would be called 4 diameter inches. And so you add all these up and it comes to 32 diameter inches. And it knows that with a 4-inch pipe, 0.237 wall, and these various items, it calculates the weight of this piece will be 190 pounds. Now that's a little bit too close to the bottom of my drawing, so I'm going to go Edit, select all of the above, and on my number keypad I'm going to press number 8 to move that up. I could move 4, or I could move 6, or I could move it on an angle, whatever I like. When I'm happy with that, oh yeah, plus I can press 0 while I'm doing that, and I'll make the increments smaller. Or I can press spacebar, or no, 5, sorry, and I'll go back to large increments. So 0 will make it small increments. 5 is going to put it back to large increments. And when I'm happy with the location, I can press enter. Oh yeah, and if I want to, you normally like to have your dimensions lined up. So I'm going to click on this arrowhead with my left mouse button, and then I can bring it in line with the other one. Now this offset box. So this 6 feet, if we were looking at that, that would be considered the hypotenuse on this 45-degree imaginary triangle. So we are going to go dimension this offset box, which is one of the simplest things you can do. Dimension offset box. Click on the middle of that dashed line, and I can either put my dimension out here or down here depending on how I move my mouse. So it calculates the rise and the run of that triangle. I like to save once in a while, file, resave. Now we don't need this other portion of the box. So tools, offset box, hide corner. And then you click on that corner. And I don't really need these other ones because that won't help the guy in the shop building it. That's a dead-ended connection. File, resave. Now you also see file resave can also be done with this, Ctrl S. So there are shortcuts. I'm old school. I usually pick it from the drop-down menu. Now you see here also these item identification bubbles. There's G, which is a 4-inch weld cap, so that corresponds to the bill of material, which describes what item G is. J is a reducing T. So you can see the bubbles are not always exactly where I'd like them, so I can go Tools, Move Tag, and I can move the tag to something that I find clearer. Now if I wanted to, I can go Tools, Label Item, Add Size Label, and I can click on this and it'll identify that that's a 4x2. And I'm moving it with the keypad again. And 0 for small increments, 5 if I want to go in large increments. When I'm happy with the location, I can pick Enter. Okay, now perhaps I want to put in there, actually identify that that's a 45-degree offset. If you want to place text anywhere, just right-click on your mouse, and this little menu will come up. Say Note, 4 or 5, Shift, tilde, 45-degree. That's what that symbol will come out as, and I'd have to say H for horizontal or V for vertical. And then I say Done when I'm happy with it. Also, I could put a box on that node or a double box if I wanted to. So I say Done. And then I can spacebar, and that'll change the orientation of that, same as we did when we drew the flange. This spacebar will change the orientation of these items. And then again, my keypad to put that down to where I would like it. Now what I want to do is draw an arc with arrowheads on it. So I move my mouse over to the right. I come down to arc with arrows. So I click on that. It's going to want to draw this arc clockwise. So I pick here with my first click, here with my second click. I suppose I could go the other way too, just by moving the mouse around. Now there's a little trick here because it's only going to draw one arrowhead unless I hold the Shift button down. So I'm going to hold Shift down now, click on the left mouse button, and that'll put a 2 arrowhead arc. Okay, let's suppose that I wanted to put a drain on this. I click on the line. Socket weld branch. Sockolet is a common item to start a drain with. So sockolet. And let's say I'm going to do a 1-inch drain. Again, spacebar is going to orient this branch. I could be going program doesn't know whether I want a vent or a drain, whatever. So when I'm happy, I press enter. Okay. Now it needs to have, I could put pipe in there, or I could put a nipple. Nipples are normally in the specification setup with a thicker wall than the pipe would be. Now the strange thing here is that nipples come under the heading of coupling. So pick coupling. I could have a threaded one end nipple or a plain both end nipple, threaded both end nipple, beveled both end. It's all in how you set the spec up, which is quite simply done. So I'm going to say plain both end. It's asking me for the length. I don't have to say anything complex. If I say 4, it understands that I'm thinking of inches. Accept. Okay, so then I, again, can orient that with spacebar. Now I want to socket weld. It says socket weld / threaded, so it's actually many combinations could go under this category. So I pick on here. I want to socket weld by threaded gate. There's one in there. If I don't like the description that it comes up with, then I'm probably not going to like the description that much. I could put 1 inch, just put in what I like there. 800 pound gate valve. Okay. And I can assign a weight, which I would probably find by looking at a valve manufacturer's catalog. And now I can say add as new description. If I say accept, it'll overwrite the description that's there. So actually that there I've kind of messed up a little bit. Socket weld, space, by threaded. Okay. So accept will overwrite the one that's there. That's okay. And again, spacebar is going to put the orientation. I'm probably going to put it like this. And you can see it's got a threaded symbol on the one end. And again, I'm going to have to move these items out of the way. Now, if I wanted to take a closer look, you can zoom on this program. Go View, Zoom. Here's different zoom options, zoom window. Of course, it's a basic program, so it's not going to have some of the options that more expensive programs have. But it's really good for our purposes. Not sure why that's not zooming. Maybe because I'm in the middle of a command. I find that resaving sometimes does a little bit of reset on this thing. Yeah, there you go. See, if things don't seem to be working, try resaving. If for some reason it seems to reset the thing's thinking. Okay, so now I might want to put a plug in there. Plugs are under caps. Now I don't see the choice I want there because the spec wasn't set up properly. What I want is some kind of threaded plug. So if the spec is not set up properly or it's an item that's very rarely used, you can come up here and go Edit Off Spec. And you can just pick all fitting choices. Try again, cap, and see it's giving me other options here. Now there's a threaded round head plug. And if I think that's too big, I could hold Shift and make that smaller. Okay, now we'd probably like to put a hand wheel on that valve, so I right click out here somewhere, not on the item. Standard detail, valve handle. You see there's a lot of these items you'd probably never use, but here's valve handle. And here's some options, basic options for a valve handle. You just click on the one you want. Again, hold Shift and arrow down because that's probably a lot bigger than what I want. Use the keypad. numerous combinations till I'm satisfied with the location, and then enter. File, resave. You notice this has a red circle around it. That's warning me that I haven't located that drain with a dimension. So it's asking whereabouts on that 5 foot 8.5 would you like to put your drain. Dimension, miscellaneous, okay? Miscellaneous, it's not going to have any pipe length associated with it that needs to show up on the bill of material as a cut length. So miscellaneous or F8 would be the shortcut. And I'm going to hit escape. Try it again. And if that's not working, I'm going to go File, Resave. Mention miscellaneous. There, now it works. I could enter this numerous ways. I could say 2 feet, 24 inches, whatever. There's 24. It understands its inches if I don't tell it otherwise. Okay, now if I perhaps was going to go a little bit bigger, I might not use a sockolet. Maybe I want a butt weld branch. Maybe I want a weldolet. So on my 4-inch line, maybe I'm putting a 2-inch weldolet. And maybe on that, I'm going to go with a weld neck flange. Now there's a dimension there, 6 1/4. I could leave that there. It's fitting to fitting. Maybe I don't want it because it's just cluttering the drawing and it's going to be what it's going to be depending on the application. So I can right click on that arrow if I just want to make that disappear. And again, you see the red circle around it because I haven't located it. So it's a nice little warning that you're missing some information there. And then next time I save it, that red ring shouldn't be there, right? So you can see it gives you the wall schedule, and then brackets after it, it tells you the actual weld thickness or schedule. So 4-inch pipe standard wall is 0.237 inches thick. Some items it may just tell you what the schedule is. And there may be a change in the schedule, such as in this weldolet. Actually, yeah, that's a little bit more confusing there. But anyway, say I wasn't happy with what I'd done here. I decided I wanted to delete an item. I can hit F11, click on the item. That turned blue. Now that it's highlighted, I could delete it by hitting the delete key. Okay, so now it's just showing what that dimension would be, still with 12 inches of pipe, but without the weld neck flange. It's 1 foot 6 from the center of the elbow to the end of the pipe. Now I'm going to decide that I want to put a reducer on there instead of a flange at this point. So reducer. I want to go beveled both end. No, actually, I want to go a concentric reducer. And I'm going to go from, it's asking me what size I'm going to. It already knows it's in 4-inch. So I'm going to go 2-inch. Happy with that. Enter. Weld neck flange. Now I probably want this to look a little bit smaller than the other flange. So shift down. Escape. F4. See how it reassigned that dimension to the end of the smaller flange. And if I wanted to, tools, label item, add size label, and it's telling me what size that reducer is. Tools, move tag. Now, perhaps I didn't want 150-pound flanges on here. I can go edit, delete last item, which was, you can see that was the flange. Say I wanted a 300-pound flange there, not the 150, which was in the specification. I can go edit, off spec. Last time I said all fitting choices for something. You can see there's other things I could do here. I can change the wall schedule to something that's not in the specification. I can change the flange face, flange rating. So I'm going to change the flange rating. All I'm going to say is I want to go off spec. I didn't specify what I'm going to do. Now I say done. So now when I go to draw my next item, I just hit escape there. When I go to do my next item, weld neck flange, it's giving me all the different options I could choose for a flange rating. 300 pound. Okay. Now it knows that that 300-pound flange is a little bit longer in dimension. So that actual cut length is a little bit smaller, I believe, than what it was with, or was it the dimension change? I'd have to relook at that. See all these items, because I did some deleting and messing around, these are not all in order. So I go edit, reset item labels, and it'll put all those in proper order. A lot of commands don't actually take effect until you go File, Resave. Okay, so those are all in order now. And we probably want to identify all these welds. So go edit, welds, show weld map. So you can see each of these welds now has an identification. And to clear that up a little bit, we do the same as we did with the item labels on the bill of material. We go Tools, Move Tag, and you just clean those up. Okay, so I think that's a good start. End of that.